Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of I Know, I Know. I believe it's the 30th. I have a very special guest. He is the co host of Talk More Talk. He is the host of the very popular YouTube channel Mean Mr. Mayo and also the channel Mayo's Movies. Welcome, Joe Mayo.
Hello, Hudson. Thank you so much for having me on. Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
So today we are discussing this album. You ever heard of it? Plastic Ono Band?
Is it any good? Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a really great album.
Yeah.
So, so when did you first come into this album as a fan?
Yeah, well, that's always a story that I never mind telling because, I really got into the Beatles heavily in the 70s, really, and started getting into the solo albums. I had already heard Imagine, I already owned Imagine, but then Plastic Ono Band was a whole new experience. From my memory, I think it was around, I want to say 1977 or so, around there, Star Wars era, when I first heard it. I was about 15 at the time, give or take. And I didn't know really what to expect. So for my very first listening, I was wearing headphones like I am now, and it was at nighttime. And I had a bedroom at the time that was living with my grandparents and my mom and my sister. It was a pretty full house, so I had a bedroom that was like it was a porch area. It wasn't not outside, but the front room, like a porch room. They call it the porch, and a lot of windows in it. And it was just a really nice atmospheric night because it was dark and the moon was out, but you had street lights out there just bringing a little light in too, the trees and everything. And I was listening to the record, and I had the lyric sheet in my hand, and I was blown away, to tell you the truth. It was like all these very deep, painful songs about suffering and what he was going through and his primal scream time where he was like screaming to let out the pain that had been contained and suppressed for so many years. And the words just resonated with me, and I felt every word was like tugging at my heartstrings. And because I was like, a teenager at the time, I kind of had, my share of problems. I mean, I had gone through divorce as a child. My father wasn't around. I just lived with my mom and my grandparents, but my grandfather was like a father, really, in a way. And I had a really good childhood, unlike John. I had a very happy childhood. But, you go into school, you got teenage angst, you got people that don't understand you or that you're angry about this or that, or you're having problems. And I just felt it all. And it was the most powerful experience, that first experience that I've ever had of any album in my life, before or since.
Um, do you remember what record label was this like an Apple pressing or was this one of those Capitol ones?
No, no, it was definitely the Apple. It was an original copy
Interesting.
with the white Apple. Yeah.
I came to this album on my 11th birthday. It was my birthday present from my grandmother, and I would. It scared me.
Yeah.
It was like terrifying because this, happy-go-lucky 11-year-old kid was listening to this album, and it's nothing you've ever heard before. Because I had Imagine, and I think I had like Wings Greatest, but that was like really it for solo Beatles album. And I had Extra Texture, interestingly enough, which is your
Uh,
favorite album, right?
oh yeah, Extra Texture. Oh, great album. I like a few songs off Extra Texture very much. The first three songs I really like, then I don't. The rest.
Same for me. But I mean, it was one of the best experiences. And I mean, you've got like a full class of musicians. I mean, you have Klaus Foreman. I mean, Ringo, John, and Yoko. And I think just those four people like make it work. And I mean, this cover is just like,
Yeah,
if it was any other cover, it would not work.
yeah. It gives you that feeling of, I don't know, just trying to cool down. Always be in the arms or the lap of the one you love. I guess trying to just like all's gonna be all right. That's how I kind of felt about that. Just trying to relax, let it all, you know, fester away.
So I think we'll go track by track. We'll
Okay.
start off with Mother,
Oh,
which I mean, the first single. I don't remember how well it did in the charts. Do you remember that being played on the radio as a kid?
no, well, you see, no, I don't actually. No, I don't remember any of these songs being played on the radio. I mean, at the time this first came out in 1970, I mean, I do remember stuff like My Sweet Lord being on the radio. And then later on, 71, I remember like Ringo's It Don't Come Easy. And I remember Uncle Albert from Paul. Those I remember, but I don't remember hearing anything by this album from John.
Interesting. But I mean, probably his best vocal performance of his entire solo career, tied up with Walls and Bridges. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. Yeah. I think I would just interject that I think that this entire album maybe has, I've said this before, John's best vocal performances maybe of his career. I think he's at the top of his game here. I think he's never sounded better, more sincere, intense, heartfelt. I think he's really great.
I mean, because he comes off of the tip of the Beatles, and to say the least, as I hate to say this, he wasn't at his top of the game in 1970 for Let It Be. I didn't feel, and not as
Yeah.
much with him
Yeah,
as
well, that's a common thing that a lot of fans think. I guess I'm inclined to agree. I don't know if I'd say so much top of the game as in it seems just not as much productivity for the Beatles. Some of the stuff, was still vintage John, but he seems to be lacking in quantity.
correct. But I mean, beautiful vocals. I love the way it opens up with the bell. Um,
Yeah,
it would not work without the bell.
and that's really right from the beginning. You're getting this long, drawn out church bell that kind of lingers and gives you a somber feeling of what we're headed for with the whole album. And later on, of course, when he did Double Fantasy in 1980, that's why it starts out gently with it kind of ding, ding, ding. It's like supposed to be the journey from this album to later on in Double Fantasy, how he kind of mellowed out by then.
Yeah, I mean, his whole that 70s was like it was it changed him so much. It really did.
Yeah, you could tell in that song, it's there's so much pain in there with that screaming. A lot of people, I guess, don't get it. You have to be clued into what the idea is. Again, working with Arthur Janov and his Primal Scream therapy, Yoko and John went there, and the idea of that's Primal Scream therapy, and you could call this the Primal album. The
Yeah.
idea was that you kind of like feel those feelings that are pent up from childhood and scream, and let them out. They usually make you cry. He said those feelings make you either cry or let them out. And that's why he's screaming at the end of the song so much, Mama, don't go, Daddy, come home. And if you know that going in, which I did, I realized the history of this listening, then it really, as I tore at my heart. I really got that feeling the first listen. And I know, like, when my girlfriend hears this, if I should play this album, or sometimes when I've had the Sirius XM Beatles channel and they play Mother, and my girlfriend was like, "Oh, she couldn't take the end of this." She didn't really get it, but even if you get it, it's not pleasant to listen to. But
No, you have to be in a real rainy day mood.
yeah, which I was in those kind of moods more often when I was like, 15, 16, but not 17, 18, but not so much these days, thank God. So it's
Yes.
hard to get in the mood to want to hear this, to be honest with you.
I mean, I got lucky because it was snowing, and I don't like snow yesterday. So
So
yesterday this was played.
for sure, I agree. Snow.
But I mean, so moving into the next track, Hold On.
Yeah.
I love this. May be my favorite song on the album.
It's funny you should say that. I was afraid you were going to ask me what's my favorite song, and I said, "Oh, if he asks me that, I'm not going to have an answer because it's really hard to pick one." I don't know why. Usually, I have it easily my favorite tracks that I could pick, but this one, I think, if he asks me, I'm going to say I think "Hold On" is my favorite. So we're on the same wavelength there.
We usually agree on things,
Yeah,
except
we
for
agree on
Dragon
this.
Pain.
I mean, this song is very, it's very simple, but at the same time, and short, but that doesn't really matter. It's got a really cool groove to it, and I like the words. Again, I take it as reassurance. A lot of people say when, and they're true, and they're right when they say that when John does his music, um, the problem is his songs, his lyrics only sing about John, so it's hard to relate. People say, whereas Paul might make it more generic, but
Yeah.
so I'll just substitute "Hold On, Joe." Hold
Yeah.
on, Joe. It's going to be all right.
I mean, this is so relatable. Like, I don't know how people say that you can't relate to this album. It's crazy.
Yeah, you tell yourself, as he says, and you soothe yourself while you listen to it. Even though John is in the lyric, you have two syllables with Hudson. So it
Yeah.
might be later on when he says, "Hold on, Yoko, Yoko." It could be, "Hold on, Hudson,
Yeah.
Hudson, hold on."
Um, what do you think of the cookie part?
Yeah, well, that part, as much as I love the song, I think that kind of ruins the flow and the mood of it. He's trying to have a little joke. Guess that's supposed to be the Cookie Monster from Sesame Street doing cookie or whatever. And I'm like, why even throw that in there? But yeah, I'll take it or leave it.
I couldn't hear the song without it just because it kind of tries to brighten the mood. Kind of
Yeah.
reminds, it gets so bashed like the "Say You Don't Love Me, My Salamander"
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
the dustbin lid line.
Yeah. 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 That's one of the bits. But I think it's just a moment of fun. I'm not really sure why he interjected that in there. If he was around today, which sadly he's not, we could ask him that if we were to interview him.
Yeah, really too bad. I mean, and so now to track number 3. I found out this may be my second favorite song on the album.
Wow, this is incredible because I'm thinking the same thing this morning. Ask me again, a year from now. But yeah, that's a really strong rocker, and I love the guitar in there, the chugging guitar in there that he plays.
Yeah, it's one of the few rockers in his solo
Yeah,
career,
yeah,
which same goes for George. I mean, there wasn't a lot of rockers. Probably fewer with George than there is with John, if you
yeah,
think about
and
it.
then true. I know what you mean, and there's an obscenity in there. I won't say the line, but some of you sitting there with your bleep in your hand.
Yeah,
And the reason I mention that is because I don't go for that sort of thing usually. I mean, and a lot of rap songs have a lot of obscenities, and I don't like obscenities just being in for the sake of it. But back when I heard this, it was such an odd thing coming from a Beatle or an ex-Beatle that it was to actually go there. And he swears a few times on this album, as we'll talk about later, or says things that aren't really correct to say.
yeah,
And I don't know, just when you do something like that, just sparingly, just as a little bit of a jolt, it works for me.
I
Uh,
agree.
you think he's referencing Paul in there? I always wondered about that. There's a line in there that says, I see religion from Jesus to Paul. And I don't know if he means Paul McCartney or like a pope or a
I, I
apostle
can
Paul.
I can imagine. It's probably Paul.
I really wondered about that. And I'm not one of those guys, again, you know me for a while on my channel. I don't go around saying, oh, this song was written about Paul. This one was written about George. To this day, there's so many fans who do that. It gets under my skin. They're like, oh, I think if you listen to a new Paul song, I think he was thinking of John when he wrote this. I don't think the Beatles, as solo artists, really think as much about the ex Beatles friends as the fans would like.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It really is crazy. Like, I mean, there's so many things that are said by them, and I mean, you can't just let people listen to this song. I don't know why.
Yeah, and I want to also mention when I think of this song and so many others on here, Ringo's drumming. This is some of Ringo's best work ever, too. The
I would say
drums.
it's his best work.
Yeah,
That's how much I
good
like it.
stuff. And especially on the companion album, Yoko Ono, Plastic Ono Band. If anybody could dare to listen to it, which I'm always speaking up for Yoko. I'm a Yoko fan. I'm a defender of Yoko, but I say I like her music, not all of it, some of it, but I generally prefer the singing when she sings, actually, not just screams and carries on and makes caterwauling sounds, things like that. Except when they're used. sparingly, like on something like "Kiss, Kiss, Kiss." At the end, you have her go off a little while, or "I'm Moving On." At the end, she does a little bit of
I
yodeling or whatever. Yeah,
love
or
I love I'm moving on. That's
yeah,
great.
that's one of my. I used to say that's my favorite song off Double Fantasy, but that's another story in itself. And one other one, "We're All Water," that she does. There again, it's basically she's singing words, but at the end she goes a little bizarre, which is in small doses. I don't mind it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the screaming. I really don't.
And the Yoko Ono Plastic Ono Band album is just a lot of noise making, really, for the
Yeah,
most part.
I mean, Primal scream therapy.
Exactly.
So, moving on to the working class hero track.
Hmm.
This one drops the F bomb, which back in
Yeah,
1970, that was not something you would expect.
yep, and that's another one. As I said, we talk more about obscenities and things like that. But it really fits. It's like if you.
Does.
This is a weird analogy, but like it's like horror movies. People say sometimes in some gore films you'll see blood just for the sake of blood, no reason. But other times it's warranted, and it kind of fits the scene or whatever. You know, but in this case it fits. Throwing the F bomb around a couple of times really works. But again, what's interesting is during this song, I forget which take it was now. Right, I did it in my review and I can't remember. I think it was take 9 is the one that he liked, but he forgot to do a verse in take
Oh,
9. So they had to re-record it later on, and it didn't come out as good as take 9. He still preferred take 9, but the new take had that extra verse in it. I think it's when they've tortured and scared you for 20 odd years, then they expect you to pick a career.
yeah, I like
When you can't
I
really
like that
function,
take a lot.
so full of fear. But so they took that line and edited it in to take 9. So that's the one we have. Take 9 is the take we have. But when it gets to that line, very slightly, you can hear the audio change for that one line because it's from the later take when they tried to do it over. Rather than just do the new take altogether, he took that line and chopped it out and put it in, or had it put in.
And I'm
And
and I'm that person that if you notice it, you can't unnotice it. So,
yeah, well, that happened with a bunch of songs for me, and it's sometimes not a good thing to know too much, because if you know too much, then it's stuck in here forever and you can't get it out. And that happens with that. I also I've just showed this, but I have it in case I need it. I have as you probably know, the new edition. We should say this is going to be coming out. This is the, I guess, 50th late anniversary edition, the ultimate mixes. John Lennon Plastic Ono Band, 6 CDs, 2 Blu-rays, sound, and also a 132-page book. But there are so many differences in here. You get to hear, I believe, the take 9 originally without that verse. It's the way it was missing originally, and then later on, before they plugged it in. But
yeah.
the whole thing about working class hero, some people say, well, John really wasn't a working class hero, so why is he saying, working class hero is something to be? And then we had someone once tell me in one of my chats, well, actually, they were kind of like not working class when John was a boy. They were kind of, kind of poor and this and that, really, but that they kind of acted as if they were working class. I don't know which way it is, but I'll leave it to people out there to make their own conclusion about that.
Yeah, because I think I was there and it kind of opened up my eyes a little bit. Because I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't know. I was trying to understand in the book. There's talk about the songs. The songs are all covered in the book that comes with it, and there's some bits in there where John's talking about working class hero, and that's kind of how it, if I remember correctly, it's like being a performer, performing like flea on stage, like you're the way you're looked at, or something like that. If you want to be a hero, just follow me. But I don't know exactly how he meant it. I have to brush up on that a little bit. I don't think it's kind of saying, "Hey, I'm working class."
yeah,
you know.
because I mean, guitar on this song is just so brilliant.
Yeah, Yep, that's very nice.
So
And, just as the less is more on this album because you only have, was it Klaus Vorman on bass, John does some piano and guitar, and you have Ringo on drums, and it's so effective. It's stark but effective.
yeah, I mean, it really is the John version of "With a Little Help from My Friends," the Ringo
Hmm.
formula.
Hmm. Yeah,
Another
putting them
Beatle.
together and working with
Yeah,
them.
it's a good way. Um, Moving on to track number 5, "Isolation."
No, yeah,
Wow, this is a screamer.
yeah, that's another one that's really intense. Yeah, and really makes you feel the pain, and and that piano too. Is nice in there. Um, I don't know what else I could say about it. It's just, a lot of these I say the same thing. They're just so heartfelt and emotional. You really can feel it, and it's interesting that again when I'm listening to this new release, which I'll refer to from time to time, there are versions on here, different versions where he's saying in that line, he says, "I don't expect." I think he says, "I don't expect you to understand after I've caused you so much pain." But in the finished one, it's after you've caused so much
Yeah,
pain. And I think he might even say, if memory serves, "I'm just a human, a victim of the insane." In the outtake, but the way it's released is, "You're just a human, a victim of the insane." That's unless he's talking about himself, so it's referencing himself by you in the third person. I don't know, but yeah,
I mean,
love it.
it closes out the sides so well.
Yeah, and we got it right. We have to remember in terms of vinyl too, because it's so easy on CD to think they just all go together. But yeah, that's a good point too. It ends the first side with a real power. Boom, isolation.
that's
Boom.
why I think CDs kind of ruined the flow of albums that were
Yeah,
created
and
in the
right,
70s.
a good point because back in those days, I mean, they're back to vinyl now, but back then it was very much an idea of, well, what's going to open the album, what's going to close side one, then we're going to get another start at side two after a little pause, and the final song. They don't really think like that with CDs anymore, or as I say, CDs are out too. See how old I am, uh, but especially streaming, right? You just pick whatever tracks you want, or if you want to just choose individual songs.
Yeah, because I think Tom Petty on Full Moon Fever. I don't know if you're familiar with that album.
Oh, very much. I like Tom Petty, and that's maybe my favorite album of
Yeah, my
his.
second favorite band, following
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah,
Beatles
I'm a
and
fan of
Beatles.
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And just to get on, I remember that in 1989, hearing that album and loving it on the radio, hearing stuff like "Running Down a Dream" and "Free Fall" and songs which now, if I dare say, are kind of played out and tired because they're on the radio and they killed them. But back then, when they were fresh, boy, they were really good.
Yeah, because I mean, it had I can't remember what's the flip over, but I mean, I was listening to it on a run, and he says, "Hello, CD listeners. This is where you would flip over on the vinyl and something."
Oh,
And I
really?
thought that was really cool. Yeah,
Uh, oh, I don't even remember that. And I know I played it on CD back in the day, but I don't remember that for some reason. Huh,
yeah.
that's
Long
cool.
tangent.
That's another album. It's rare for me, as anybody knows who follows me, to like an album that's not Beatles or solo or some other people I like Joan Jett. I like her stuff all the way through, but usually I don't like albums all the way through. That one I pretty much can enjoy all the way.
You like any other Tom Petty albums all the way through?
Let me think. Maybe "Damn the Torpedoes,"
Oh,
possibly.
love them.
There's good other ones I kind of like pick and choose. I listen to mostly compilations now.
What about Wildflowers?
It's funny about Wildflowers. Who knew we were going to go here, right? Um, that's considered his best or one of his best. And I was in the store, I'd say, within the last 6 months or something, because there was the big Wildflowers set that came out, and they were playing it in the store. And I listened, and I was while I was browsing, I was there a long time, and I heard it, and it didn't really grab me as much as some of the other stuff. I don't know why it is. I think generally I prefer Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers earlier stuff, although Full Moon Fever's a solo Tom Petty album.
You got to play it a few times, then you'll really love it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I haven't given it much time that I
Kind of like
should.
Blonde on Blonde.
Blonde on Blonde. You talk about Dylan? Blonde on Blonde?
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that now. I remember there was a time when it was not
I
a
hated
favorite.
that album for a long time.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing with that album is that to me, I mean, I'm a Dylan fan also. I'm glad you're naming people that I like. Uh, I'm a Dylan fan also, and I have most of his albums. But on that one, that seems to be where that stereotype has come from a lot, where he does, oh, mama, I'm gonna really be man. It's like he doesn't. To me, he didn't seem to do that as exaggeratedly in earlier albums.
Yeah, it feels a little forced on that album.
But yeah, I do like that album. Now, I remember there was a time when I thought it was one of the most overrated of the classic albums for that reason. But no, I have a much more positive view of it now.
Still hasn't changed with Pet Sounds. We won't get into that.
No, Pet Sounds, I Beach Boys. No, I have not changed with that. I gave it about three or four listens so far.
But so long tangent. But now
Yeah,
we flip over the record, as I say.
yeah. Isn't that and the back is so cool too because it's him again. You know, as getting his childhood feelings out that he's been pent up since youth. So that's really a good back cover as
Yeah,
well.
and you have. I'm gonna guess because you have a lot more vinyl than me. You have the one with Yoko, right?
Yes.
Interesting. Is that
Yeah.
harder to find in your
Well,
area?
you know, I'm so blessed with that because where I live, I mean, I live in the state of New York, and therefore there are lots of stores where you can find stuff that is so commonplace where I am. And at any given day, my favorite record store will get this stuff in. I mean, it's just right there anytime. It just comes in. Maybe not. Well, not. I say any given day. The Yoko Ono Plastic Ono Band original might not pop in any day, but I've seen it many times there. But I feel sorry for people who are not in areas where they have easy access to record stores. And one day in the next couple of years, 2, 3 years, when I leave and move somewhere else, I dread that I'm not going to be able to find stuff as readily in other record stores, if there are any record stores wherever I go.
Yeah, you're there and everywhere. There's collectors.
You know it. So, because a lot of people, a lot of fans will say, "Oh, I never see that. It's so hard to find." I don't know. "She Loves You" 45 by the Beatles on Swan. I never see that anywhere. What are you kidding? Every day, every week, I see that. Now, not always with the sleeves, but the 45 record I see. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean a mint sleeve. That's not gonna come in every day.
No, not every day. Every week. Every once a month.
But moving back to the album,
Yes.
if you remember, pun intended.
Um, what can I say about Remember? Well, it's a good opener. It's a
It
good album opener. It's the
it
piano driven.
rocks.
It
Piano.
rocks. It's another. I keep using the word intense. It's really like piano driven. Um, I love it. I love the middle part of it. And don't feel sorry about the way it's gone. Don't you worry about what you've done. Uh, that changeover that he does in the middle.
My only complaint about this song is on this original pressing, on the original master, the production feels really like kind of drowned. Sounds like
I never thought of that. Huh. Funny,
kind of
you
like
learn things.
the original
Yeah.
Mind Games as I was playing this. So I went onto YouTube and I played the remaster from 2010, and it sounded a lot clearer.
Mhm. Yeah.
Even though I hate to say I YouTubed the song.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I never really considered that, but whenever you mention it, makes me think about it. I know when I first listened to it, I got shocked at the end because I had the headphones and I had never heard it before. And I remember the 5th of November, boom, big explosion. And I was like, what the heck is that? You know? And the day they blew up the Houses of Parliament or something. It was 5th of November. I don't really know what that was all about, but on the first listen, it really gave me a jolt.
Yeah, but that song was one that I never really liked at first
Yeah.
until I listened and listened. But now it's definitely one of the standout tracks.
So, I mean, overall, are you a fan of the album overall?
Oh, it's in my like top 20 albums of all time.
Oh, okay. I was going to, because at first when it scared you as an 11-year-old, kind of, which is understandable, and I was wondering how it had grown over the at that time.
Oh, play this album like once a week.
Oh wow, couldn't. And I just had my fill again because as you know, on my channel I did a review of the big set, and oh man, I was listening to this album so many times. The remastering of the main album, and then all the outtakes and evolution mixes and elements, and hey, I had it coming out of my ears.
Yeah, it's like that and Band on the Run. So burnt out on that album.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of burnt out on the Beatles, not the solo careers, but the
Yeah,
Beatles.
well, that happens to me too. I'm always fond of saying that. I said I could not keep the Sirius XM channel, Beatles channel, because I was in my car listening all the time, and every time I turn it on, I'm hearing the same 200 or so Beatles songs. Which, what do you expect on a Beatles channel, right? But my argument with that has always been, why can't they give you like 3 or 4 um, actual Beatles tracks if you want? I understand that's what they think most people want to hear. And then after you do 3 Beatle tracks, then you give a deep cut. Play George Harrison's "This Guitar Can't Keep from Crying." Then you play another 3 Beatles big songs everybody knows, and throw in Ringo doing "Rack My Brain," and then so on and so on. And if you do this, throw in John doing "Hold On." After every three, people will get to know these. Because I am burnt out on the actual Beatles. Also, Beatles catalog. I had to get rid of Sirius XM. I couldn't take it because they didn't vary it up enough.
It's
With other.
funny you say, because when I'm with my grandfather, he'll play it. They always play really obscure stuff. You'll like this. I heard I Me Mine. I heard For You Blue. You know
Mm.
how excited I was to hear those songs on the radio?
Yeah, but I'm kind of burnt out on all of them. People would think, oh, with a collection like this, and I'm a Beatles fanatic, that I'd be playing Beatles all the time. But as you said at the start, now solo Beatles, I'm not burnt out on. Because the Beatles' career goes from '62, "Love Me Do," all the way up to Ringo's EP that just came out last month, "Zoom In," and Macartney 3. I mean, if you want to say, there's so many avenues to explore. If you want to take all of the music of the group and then go in 4 directions, really is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so many albums. Probably around 70, I would say, now.
I never really thought to count.
And 100, including John's compilations.
Yeah, well, those compilations, exactly. That's a show in itself, right?
That will be a future episode. Um, so moving on to the next song, side 2, track 2, Love.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, beautiful piano driven. This, like, people use the term pure Lennon. This is like pure Lennon with all these songs. But this
Yeah.
one, like, just stands out like a brick wall.
Yeah. It's do you want to say the Beatley track?
Yeah.
John often said that, this is the Beatle track, or he did that with Double Fantasy. I think he called "Woman" the Beatle track and that stuff, from Double Fantasy. And yeah, it's a beautiful song. What can you say? It shows the sensitivity of John, you know, um, which is something a lot of people have forgotten, I think. They just think of John as the hard edge guy all the time. And it shows you he could do sensual stuff and really mellow too.
I mean,
And
he
it's
wrote Dear
just a
Yoko.
gorgeous, yeah, gorgeous song.
I mean, because they wanted to make Dear Yoko a single, but he told people that he didn't want them to think him as a softie. But I mean, Imagine is exactly the hardest song.
Yeah, I know he wanted "Oh Yoko" as a single from Imagine. Um, Dear Yoko, from I just got done defending Yoko. I'm a fan, but I always say Dear Yoko to me might be one of the weakest of John's tracks on
I love that song. It's so
Double.
underrated.
Sorry, but
It's
you know,
okay.
I enjoy it. I just think it's one of the weaker ones for me on that album. And he'd already covered that ground a little bit with Oyoko, which I think I like much better. So
Yeah. But I mean, I'm impartial to say I like woman better than girl.
I think I do these days also. You know, I was surprised when I did on my Fab Gab show that I do on my channel. We were ranking the songs from Rubber Soul, and Girl came in kind of low for me. And I was really surprised at myself.
Yeah. But so moving on to the next track. Well, well,
Yes.
well. This was a
Oh,
grower. Well, well, well. This was a grower for me.
I
It
could
took
see that. I could understand that.
took me a
But
while,
boy,
but love it.
I mean, again, that screaming and everything, and I don't
Yeah.
know, feeling like they're victims. Maybe we both were nervous, feeling guilty, and neither one of us knew just why. You know, I don't know. That screaming bit where he goes insane again. That's like what we were talking about with Mother. A lot of that yelling and carrying on and ranting. Uh, I used to crank that during the days when I was living, as I said, with my mom. My mom used to work. She went to work. She actually worked in the World Trade Center. They're talking about the 1970s, you know. And I was home with my grandparents a lot. She was going out working, and I was home with the grandparents. And I used to crank well, well, well. And for old grandparents to hear that screaming, they probably didn't understand Bebop Alula as it was. Now they're hearing this. It's intense.
What did your grandparents think of it? Were they like,
No, what grandmother used to be like walking by, doing the laundry or doing the housework, and she'd say, "Oh, what? Get that crap off." She never used to say stuff like that, but that's the classic thing where a lot of older people would hear something like that'd be like me listening to hip hop today and saying, "Turn that garbage off." But you
yeah,
know.
I would say that.
And I could understand, though. I mean, I could understand she liked it. My grandmother liked a lot of Beatles stuff that I played, because there's stuff like uh, whether it's like Yesterday or Here, There, Everywhere or stuff like that. But when you have John Lennon solo screaming the top of his lungs, even if you like that stuff, it could be too much at times for even if you like it.
Yeah, I agree. But just beautiful song, like everything else on this album.
Well, it's just the powerful power and the again the getting rid of so much laundry and dirty laundry, airing all the stuff off, which is how I always took it to be when I first heard it. The primal scream thing, I expected screaming.
Like if you added the slightest more production on this album, it wouldn't be the same. It really
Yeah, and
wouldn't.
we should talk of Phil Spector. Wasn't there that much? I don't
Yeah.
think Phil Spector was involved, and you don't really hear a lot of Spector effects on this, really.
Are you a Phil Spector fan in general?
As far as his work, not as a person, but yeah, I mean, I get what he was trying to do, and when you hear some of those early Phil Spector songs that he did with the Ronettes and things like that, I mean, yeah, that gives it a real character and unique feel. The Wall of Sound, and even George Harrison's "All Things Must Pass." It's funny because we all are waiting and hoping that there's going to be an "All Things Must Pass" box set that takes the Spectre stuff off, tries to despecterize it as much as they can. But in a way, I say, but at the same time, I'm very anxious to hear that, by the way.
Me
But
too.
I wonder, would it be All Things Must Pass anymore without that? Would it be the
Yeah.
same work? I
We're
wonder.
waiting on you all, Harrison Estate. Come on.
Yeah, definitely. And we got a few hints out there. We had a few songs. Well, how many did we have that came out? We had the title track, "All Things Must Pass," kind
And
of
My
cleaned
Sweet
up.
Lord, and Isn't It a Pity on the
My sweet
45.
Lord, isn't it a pity? So let's hope. But yeah,
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I'm kind of a Phil Spector fan. Like, so I don't know how All Things Must Pass would be without it, but we
Yeah.
need like a mid tier. Everybody wants real stripped down. I think we need like a little bit lower, but not completely vanished.
It'll yeah, it'll be a little taste of it. It'll be interesting for sure if they can do it, especially a song like "Awaiting on You All." That song has a lot of. It's hard to hear the words, and you have to look at the lyric sheet because they're so drowned out the words on there. And the song "Wah Wah" also, I wonder what that would sound like, really clean, totally cleaned up. Although, again, that wall of sound gives it its character in a way. So,
Yeah, because I mean, this is my favorite track on the album, Wah
hmm,
Wah,
hmm.
interestingly enough.
That's one of them. Yeah.
I mean, great guitar, great vocal performance, but I don't know if how I would feel about that song without the heavy production. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, it's part of what we're used to. What we like about it at the same time.
So moving on to the next song, Look at Me. What are your thoughts on Look at Me?
I love "Look at Me."
I do
That's up
too.
there for my one of my favorites on here, right along with "Hold On." The same kind of thing, kind of like more laid back. I love the lyrics. Again, they're basic, but I'm trying to figure out like what's he supposed to do? Who am I? When you're trying to find yourself at a young age, again, as I was, I think I found myself, but it took like decades. But
You see yourself?
yes, see yourself. Exactly. And it's beautiful. A lot of these songs had, earlier birth, really, so to speak, from the Beatles days. I think this is one of them that just goes
Yeah.
back.
Wasn't it dating back to the White Album? Maybe.
Yeah, it dates back in there might have, I'm not 100% sure of this. Are there any, why do I want to say the Get Back stuff is a version of this? I get mixed up which ones they do.
I think there is.
I know there's All Things Must Pass, and stuff, obviously.
I
But
actually think you mentioned it in one of your early videos showing a bootleg.
yep, look at me. Yeah, I really like that song quite a bit.
Yeah, it's like this. It's pure Lennon, as I would say for all this album is, except
And is that the one, the finger picking one that he sounds like a little like Julia from the Beatles?
yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
and yeah, and I like that when he tries that. But again, back to the new release, so don't forget to pick this up, folks. Coming out at the end of the month. I think April 23rd, I think, or somewhere in
Oh
late April.
man, yeah. I mean,
There are moments in there where he's talking about how hard it is to do that. Try to get that sound, the fingers and everything. And I just love it. There's a lot of extra fun stuff on this to hear.
it is, and I can't wait to get my two CD set. It's gonna really be, and I hope the vinyl price, double LP, comes down in price.
Yeah, that is pretty high, as I've heard. Yeah, I don't know why. It's only two records. It's like around $70 or something.
Yeah, I can't afford that for just two LPs. It's a little
Yeah,
crazy.
that's a bit much.
I hope they haven't gone Troppo.
Out to lunch on that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, moving into the next track, the last real song on this album,
Yeah,
God is a Concept. Wow, this one really scared me. Even to this day, like,
yeah.
thinking of it, know the I don't believe in Beatles is coming.
Uh,
But I mean,
that's a real shock. It's so powerful again. The way it's just that's what he stops. Well, he knows what he's doing. He stops, but let that register in your brain for a few seconds before he
yeah,
starts singing again. I just believe in me. Um, I mean, I love the song. I appreciate the song. When you get down to it, really, it's not much of a song except he's just listing a bunch of items that he's like through with. Basically, he only believes in him and Yoko. That's it. That's his way of saying he's moving on, and just no more myth, no more stuff, phony stuff. Just the reality of him and Yoko, their relationship, and no more Beatles, no more Elvis and Dylan and all this, and on and on and on. And I think I remember in the Rolling Stone interview where I think he interviewed and he says, somebody said, "What? How did you arrive at that litany from the song?" And John goes, "What's litany?" I didn't even know. This is a litany. There's the series of lists saying I don't believe in this. You know, um, yeah, and the whole God thing. I don't want to go there too much, but I'm a believer myself. Uh, John went back and forth, I think, trying to understand, which a lot of people do, the concept of God and everything, um, what it's all about. And at the end, the last day actually of his life, with the RKO interview in 1980, he mentioned God a few times, and he'd done that in 1980. I think even in other interviews at the end. So at the end, I think he had it figured out more or less. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because we're
he's still pondering.
yeah, because we're like going back now, and some people saying that he would have been extremely right winged nowadays, not to get
Ah, who
too.
knows? Yeah, I've heard that before. I don't know. But the thing about John was that he was always changing his mind and always weighing everything. Well, what do I think of this? Well, I used to think that, but now the more I think of it, this makes more sense. And a lot of people frown down on that. They look at it as a weakness or something that's not a good trait. All I know is that's one of the reasons that John's my favorite Beatles. I do that all the time. I mean, I change my mind all the time. I used to think this way, now I think that way, and so on. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
I don't either. I mean, you've the times there are changing, and I mean, you got to think what you need to think.
Yeah, and even Dylan, sang the times they are a changing, and then he had a song in more recent times. I used to care, but things have changed. So I like to think that that's him kind of renouncing that idea of times they are a changing, and hey, you old folks, get out of the new road, whatever the word. If you can't lend your hand, but now he's like, I used to care, but things have changed. That's the way I look at it. If the Bible, what's some of the words in that? Things have changed. Have you ever heard that song? Things have changed.
Is that off? What's the
I
album?
don't know if it was
Tempest.
from a movie or I don't know if it was a proper song. As far as on an album, I think it's on the Essential Bob Dylan. I think, or one of those compilation, some compilation. But you should, if you ever get a chance, you should watch a video with the lyrics. And if the Bible's right, the world's gonna explode. I don't know. I used to care, but things have changed. People are crazy and times are strange. I'm a far out of range, keeping myself out of range. I used
That's
to
why we.
care, but things have changed.
That's why we love Dylan.
Yeah, and he
Hey,
doesn't believe in Dylan
no,
anymore. Zimmerman, Zimmerman. Yeah, a cinnamon. Yeah, no, it was Zimmerman. And I remember in the interview again, the Rolling Stone interview, he said, "Why did you say I don't believe in Zimmerman?" He goes, "And not Dylan." He goes, "Because Dylan's bullshit. Zimmerman is his name." And the thing is, but that all the more reason to say I don't believe in Dylan. You should have said I don't believe in Dylan, which he did in some of the early versions. I think he does use Dylan in some of the demo somewhere in the early versions.
yeah. So, moving on to the last track, My Mummy's Dead. Even though it's a snippet, I could not live without this song.
Yeah,
I
I
could not
agree.
have it close the album any other way.
It is perfect. It is perfect as it is, and I'm going by my first listen. That whole, almost like you're just like in a daze. My mommy's dead. I can't get it through my head.
It's
He's like,
like almost laughable because it's so stupid sounding.
yeah, yeah. I call it cryptic or creepy or like shell shocked, as if like that's how I look at it. The way I described it for me, it's just kind of like the pain and the being completely like stumped by what happened. I can't believe it. That kind of thing. I love that, and what a way to end it. The album.
Kind of like how Walls and Bridges ends with "Ya Ya" to brighten the mood.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it doesn't brighten the mood to
Well, that
me.
kind of is like you can't go out with God.
It
You can't
seals the.
go out.
I see what you're saying. With that last, the dream is over. If it had ended that way, yeah, I can see what you're saying now. If they had ended it just the dream is over, boom, that would have been like, oh man, that would have been even more of a socket
Yeah,
to you.
like Memory Almost Full couldn't do without Nod Your Head.
Yeah, although I like "Nod Your Head," by the way, for what it
I do
is.
too. I defend that song.
Again, I always say for what it is. It's not. I don't take it seriously. It's a fun ending, but I wish Paul had the. Do I say guts? I don't know because John sometimes doesn't have the guts either. But to just end on the end of the end, oof, that would have been like too intense. That's why he lightened it up a little bit, I'm sure. But it would have been cool also to hear "Memory Almost Full" end with the end of the end, a song that I'm always going on about that I love.
Yeah, it would be cool. But so overall in Lennon's canon, where do you rank this?
Yeah, okay. For me, I usually rank it number two behind Imagine. But the problem is, if I was going to consider what is a masterpiece, this is John Lennon's masterpiece.
It is.
I think, yeah, I agree. Yeah. So in that regard, it's like, well, what is technically his masterpiece? Technically his best album? I'd have to go with this one, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band. But as I said at the beginning, I'm not always in the mood to hear this album. You got to be. It helps to be really depressed and things are down and I'm not sure of things and what's the world all about. Then you can get more out of the album. But I'm not in that state much these days, happy to say. So, yeah, because of that, Imagine is my favorite John Lennon album, I guess. Although it's a little, you could argue it's a little played out again. It's a little over celebrated. It's always imagine this, imagine that. The song itself is played out, imagine, and so is the album. But I think it's good because, as John said, well, it's Plastic Ono Band with chocolate on top or sugar on top or something. It's kind of like still got his feelings and his his depressions and things that bother him, his uncertainties and doubts and about life, but yet it's a little bit more palatable, a little more commercialized, a little bit more that you could take it. So that's why I think I like that best. And I know Walls and Bridges is a favorite album of yours, right? Uh, It is one of mine as well. I love Walls and Bridges. Those are my three favorite John albums: Imagine, Plastic Ono Band, and Walls and Bridges. Maybe in that order, you know.
I mean, I would I Walls and Bridges has to be number one for me, but this is number two. Mind Games number three, and then Plastic Ono Band number four.
Yeah, Mind Games is getting a lot more praise these days. How that goes in cycles. Like now, Ram by Paul is very highly thought of, and certain things change. And there's some other ones too that are escaping me at the moment that have their reputations. I think
Press
McCartney
to play.
too. Yes,
Press to
say again.
play. Press to
Oh,
play.
Press to Play also. Press to Play is an album that, as you probably know, that I don't really care for. It's one of my uh, least albums from Paul, I think. However, like you say, that yeah, Press to Play is another one that's getting built up more. It's getting a better reputation as time's going on. So where does that put us back with what I was saying with relating to John? Uh, I don't know. I kind of like went off track with that, but that's what happens from time to time.
um.
Things reputations change.
So, just curiosity, what is the closest thing from each solo Beatle? The
What's the what?
closest thing that each solo Beatle has done to Plastic Ono Band.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, first with Paul, of course, I always say chaos and creation in the backyard. Uh, I really like that album because it's really Paul being more vulnerable, a little bit more stark in his feelings, a little bit more discussing his pains or trepidations and things that are bothering him. So it's more real, that album, Chaos and Creation. So that's easy for me. I never really gave thought to George or Ringo. Which one for George is the most like Plastic Ono Band? I'm thinking, the first thing that pops in my head, I don't know why I'm thinking of Living in the Material World, but that's more spiritual than anything.
I'd say Brainwashed.
Brainwashed, which is another good album that gets overlooked,
Oh,
I think.
it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. And does Ringo have one?
I think I do. I know you don't like this album. Buku's of Blues.
Yeah, it's not a favorite of mine at all, but you find it to be close to in spirit to Plastic Ono Band.
You have to be at that in that mood to listen to it.
Interesting.
very kind of depressed.
Yeah, yeah, I never thought of it that way.
And
I guess a
also,
lot of those types of songs, though, maybe are like
yeah,
that kind of thing.
and also, it's another top five Ringo album for me.
Oh, well, that's another album we just were talking about. Things that get better reputations. Buku's of Blues is very high up there lately when people discuss Ringo albums as a country album. You know, a lot of people like that.
I think it just has the same kind of vein. And for Paul, I also think Flaming Pie a little bit. Linda Was Dying, not production wise.
Yeah, yeah. There's some somber songs like Little Willow, um, and maybe Calico Skies is
Some
kind of
days,
bittersweet.
yeah, and
Although
Great
that
Day.
was recorded a lot earlier, I think.
Oh yeah, before Linda was. No, she wasn't sick in '93.
No.
Um, and I also feel that way. I know you're not gonna agree with this, but Driving Rain.
Oh, that's a depressing album, all right? For me, for different
Oh, that's
reasons.
a great album, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, well, I'll have to give that another listen. That's another one. We're going to be doing a show eventually on Talk More Talk. We keep talking about it. Doing a show where we're going to be going through Driving Rain again. And we have that series that you might know called Another Listen. Albums that usually are maligned overall that we give another chance to. One of them was Ringo the Fourth, which was one of our most popular shows over at Talk More Talk
yeah, that was
on
a great
YouTube.
show.
Check it. Here's a plug again. Talk
I'll
More
link
Talk.
it.
Yeah. So and then we did. What other one did we do? Help me out here. Gon Troppo we did, which is another album that's maligned a lot.
You weren't there, but Extra Texture.
Yeah, Extra Texture. Yeah, I had technical difficulties,
I
and I'll
remember
tell you.
you popped onto the Zoom and you went.
It's all I could. So that's all I could do. Oh, I had a lot to say about that album, and I tell you, I think the ghost of George Harrison was in charge of there, keeping me out. But yeah, yeah. So Driving Rain is one of in the series that we're thinking of doing because that's another one that's kind of gotten a lot of lumps hurled at it.
And I know Ken Michaels really loves that album now.
Yeah. I haven't discussed that album with him too much. Uh, I well, actually, I watched the show. I'm sorry, he did a
Yeah, that was
show.
that was a really cool show that he
Yeah, I
did with
watched the
I
show
think.
with Ghosty. Right. What am I talking about? I know how we feel. I'm sorry. I'm talking about our discussions on Talk More Talk. I was thinking. Then I realized he did a really good show on the Ken Michaels radio channel, where he talked with Dave Ghosty Wills, and they were defending the album. And there you
Yeah,
go. We'll see. I know. All I can tell you is that I lately I've had a slightly less harsh feeling about some of the songs on there. So I'm thinking it's going to be better for me the next time I hear it and give it a chance again. But it's never going to be a favorite. Something's got to go on the bottom of the list for me.
yeah, it's the Russian album. That's the
Yeah,
only correct
yeah.
answer.
I guess if I'll put that down there if we're going to not talk about Paul's own material.
Yeah, but so where can we find you, and what do you have coming up?
Oh, thanks very much. Well, of course, my main thing with me is my YouTube channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, right here on YouTube. Just check it out. And I do all kinds of stuff on there. I do videos showing my collection, new things that I acquire, uh, going into my record store. I have a reality show about my record store and all the crazy people that hang out there and the stuff. And I do all kinds of stuff, reviews. And also, there's a show that I do on my channel that you can find called Fab Gab, and we're doing a Fab Gab show. It's tomorrow. I don't know when people are going to see this, but it's April 18th, and it's at 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be ranking the songs on Sergeant Pepper from our least favorite to most favorite, and we're going to have a special guest, Kit O'Toole, for my co-host from Talk More Talk, is going to be on there. So yeah, so look out for my show Fab Gab, only on the Mean Mr. Mayo channel, and I'm also going to be on with Hudson right here,
Yeah, but I
which
mean,
you can see.
yeah, well, it's streamed live, so
Yeah.
I'll get it up to Spotify and Apple Music later. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh no, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Anytime.
So if you don't know where you're going, any road you take it there.
Best song on the album.